It's time to duel! Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is one of the most frustrating card games I've ever tried to learn. Developed by KONAMI and released in 2022, and under the free-to-play model. Sooner or later, I was bound to check it out to see if I liked it. Confession. I haven't really watched the anime. I watched Little Karibo's abridged version. I played the card game with my friends a few decades ago, but if Mom thought Pokemon are from the devil, you can probably imagine Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't fly in our family. So I come from a darn near zero experience level. I have once again found myself reviewing a game where I really don't feel qualified to speak about it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is for people who actually know what the heck they're doing, or people who are willing to learn an incredible amount of gameplay mechanics. The game asks if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh! The trading card game, or watched the anime on your first time booting up the game. But seeing as I had only seen at least an episode or two, and of course the entire of Little Karibo's Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge series, I thought I had at least a little bit of experience. It wasn't enough! I knew nothing, Jon Snow. I was tossed into the deep end of the pool and I did not know how to swim. Still don't, if I'm being completely honest. For those of you who are fans of the game, let me warn you right now. I'm heated, I'm frustrated, this game has exasperated me more than most video games I've played lately. I'm predicting most of the comments in this video will either be advice on how to get better, or people who are very angry with me not understanding anything about the game. You have my sincere apologies. I will do my best to present my experience playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Just let me preface, I'm probably one of the worst players to review it. So naturally, we need to start with the obvious question. How did I end up downloading Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel in the first place? That's a good question.
It all started on Christmas. One of my younger brothers and I were playing on our Steamdeck. Seeing as it was brand new, I was looking for games to install and play on it. Well, this bright guy decides to suggest we install Yu-Gi-Oh! And learn how to synchro summon.
It was merely a joke that got carried away and landed me with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel on my Steam Deck. That's fine, I said to myself. I'll review the game in a few months after I play through the solo stories and kind of figure out how to play the game more. Well, I don't even think I'm going to be able to get through the story modes because I keep getting beat up by the computers. So by my own metric, I can never complete the game to a point where I feel like I can review it. So to forego my goalpost, we're doing it now. We're reviewing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel now, in my current state of ignorance and incompetence. I really thought I'd be able to figure out Yu-Gi-Oh! I really did. I've played many trading card games, both physical and online. My resume reads thus: the Pokemon trading card game, Magic the Gathering, both the cards in the local comic book store, and Magic the Gathering Arena, the Star Wars trading card game, the Young Jedi trading card game, Faria. I have an old video on Faria, but don't watch it. It's old. And of course, Hearthstone. I've got an old video on that one too. Don't watch it either. I even, in a last-ditch effort to glean an understanding of the game, I tried to look up a beginner tutorial where I stumbled onto TGS Anime's video, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Idiot's Guide to Master Duel, Beginner's Guide, where within the first 15 seconds I'm informed Master Duel is not for beginners.
Well, what am I supposed to do now, then?
I'm upriver without a paddle. I did learn a bit about the game, and I'll do my best to explain what I can, but consider my tale one of warning for those of you who aren't ready to dive deep if you don't already know the game.
Long ago, when the pyramids were still young, Egyptian kings played a game of great and terrible power. But these shadow games erupted into a war that threatened to destroy the entire world, until a brave and powerful pharaoh locked the magic away. Now, 5,000 years later, KONAMI saw how successful a certain yellow mouse was, and thought, we gotta get some of that money. And thus, my generation was torn between two camps. The Pokemon card kids and the Yu-Gi-Oh card kids. But they were all of them deceived, because a third game which had existed before either of them was lurking in the shadows. A game of magic and sorcery. And just generally more friendly to get into and understand. Ever heard of Magic the Gathering?
There actually is kind of a story. In solo mode, you can play different campaigns, stories, deck themes, meta game builds. Obviously, I'm not sure what to call them, but for example, you can play the Warriors of the Six Elemental Lords, where you learn of the backstory of how the world is comprised of 6 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, light, and darkness. And the elements were brought to the earth by 6 elemental lords. In my mind, I think of these stories like how Magic the Gathering has a yearly set, but also did a Lord of the Rings set for a while. The story in these sets is about what you'd expect. Mildly interesting at best, but the artistic depictions on the cards is probably the most you're gonna get out of it. Except they kept me invested because they reward you free stuff for playing the solo missions. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel has been very rewarding with free stuff, from daily missions to lots of free promos that run all the time. Moving on to gameplay. I don't think I can explain in a few paragraphs what several tutorials couldn't for getting a rudimentary understanding of Yu-Gi-Oh! Thankfully, this is a video game, so a lot of the mechanics are taken care of. Shuffle the deck, cut the deck, draw cards, flip a coin, or rock, paper, scissors for who goes first, etc. There are 6 phases each turn. Draw phase, standby phase, main phase 1, battle phase, main phase 2, and end phase. There are 3 types of cards: monster cards, magic cards, and trap cards. Each type of card specializes and acts slightly differently from the others. In my smooth brain, I think of it like this. Monster cards stay on the field and pulverize your enemies. Magic cards and trap cards can do basically anything. Magic cards are typically played on your turn, and trap cards need to meet special conditions. What are these special conditions? I don't know. I don't read carefully enough, and normally set down trap cards which never activate, because I'm the dumbest anime character ever. As with most deck builders or trading card games, you build a deck with a theme and strategy which synergizes with the strategy card's theme of that deck. There's a lot of ways to do that, and for that I suggest checking out how-to tutorials or beginner guides. I'm definitely not qualified to give you tips on building decks, I'm sorry. What we care about here is the basic principles. So what is more basic than the age-old question, how do you win a duel? At the start of the game, both you and your opponent will have 8,000 life points. The most straightforward win condition is winning by damaging your opponent until they have 0 life points. You can also win by your opponent running out of cards and then being forced to draw from their main deck, which has no cards. Instant lose condition. And lastly, there are several different cards which will just end the game with your victory. The most well-known is Exodia, the Forbidden One, where you have all the pieces of Exodia and the game just ends when you have them all. Looks like I learned one thing from the anime, right? There's actually a lot of these Exodia type win conditions. I guess we should remember the nature of Yu-Gi-Oh! Being a trading card game and incentivizing players to collect and trade these cards. The solo game I played showed me a new win condition much like the Explodia one. After looking online, according to fandom, there are 15 dual winner cards, but not all of them are legal for tournament play. Another thing worthy of note is just how many cards there are in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. In my relatively short time playing, I've picked up many hundreds of freebies and wasted the in-game currency on random card pack purchases. Because I didn't find out until later that I'm actually supposed to be focused on trying to build a functional deck so I can play at least somewhat competitively, instead of faffing about buying random packs because that's what I did as a kid. I guess some things never change. Again, I learned I should have actually been working towards building a functioning deck when I watched TGS Anime's Idiot's Guide to Master Duel. Ideally, your goal is to set up a functional deck so you can play standard or event duels to get more currency to build more decks. I suggest checking out his video. I will leave a link in the description of this video. You can actually look around at the various Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards while building a deck, sort by types, search by keywords, and even craft cards. The best way to go about building your deck is to select a theme or mechanic you want to build around. This is one of the areas the solo game is actually helpful with. The solo game will give you lots of loner decks to experiment with and dabble around with. If you don't want to dabble and want to get straight to the point where you start winning, that'll probably require a fast track to searching competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel decks. An internet search I haven't done yet, and probably won't do, at least not anytime soon. I've got other games I need to play. A final note, or gripe about Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel gameplay. Actually, it's really more of a comment on Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. There are paragraphs of text on most of these cards. There are some cards which just have a lore description, but many of the used cards have multiple paragraphs of text explaining conditions, rules, etc. For example, if you control Visa Starfrost, or a monster with 1500 attack, 2100 defense, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Manadium Fearless once per turn this way. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Manadium Fearless from your deck. Also, during the battle phase this turn, synchro monsters you control gain 500 attack. That's one card. That's one card. That's one card. How am I supposed to play a game with a timer and read these cards which are flying at me at the speed of light? I get it. It's because you're supposed to already have read them and know what they do. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, am I being unfair? How do you play tournaments? Is most of it spent reading each other's cards to make sure that no one's cheating? Or do you just actually know all these cards and what they do? Explain, please. In an attempt to contrast Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the reoccurring themes I've noticed playing them, in Magic the Gathering, it's all about tapping lands. I don't have enough land to summon monsters or cast spells. Land starved. Too much land, not enough spells or monster cards. In Pokemon, it's all about energizing your Pokemon. If you don't have enough energy, you can't do your big damage moves. And then you just bounce your Pokemon around from benched to active. But you can't even retreat unless you pay the energy costs to retreat. In Yu-Gi-Oh! It's all about, I summon this monster face down in defense mode. I special summon Batman. I synchro summon Two-Face in attack mode. I sacrifice all my monsters to summon One-Face in defense mode. Summoning and the classic, you've stumbled into my trap card line. I thought after spending some time playing Magic the Gathering Arena, I wouldn't be fazed by card effect wordiness. I was so wrong. I'm sure there are long card descriptions in all trading card games, but I feel like I'm in a speed reading contest whenever I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! No wonder we probably cheated by playing house rules as kids. pretty big fan of being able to play games on my phone to get progress on them while I'm away from my desktop computer. So this all started with looking up something to play on our Steam Decks, but you can keep your cards across platforms. I can duel on my phone in the bathroom, I can duel on my TV with a game console, I can duel at my computer, and all of them will count towards the same account. I would note it's hard to read all the text on the cards when your device is smaller, but it is doable. Don't feel shackled by the platform you're playing on. You can make progress on all your devices. Gamers rejoice! As I reflect on my time playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, I find myself pondering how I ever played this game as a preteen. But I do have fond memories of the trading card game, and I'm glad it's still going strong. I wouldn't say my time was wasted here. I didn't realize I was stepping into the deep end. While I definitely drank ample supply of water, I did play against other people who might not have had any idea what was going on either. I was just over here like, let me play the dragon deck! Woo! I love dragons! Woo! I remember my first deck I ever had was a deck of extra dragon cards my middle school best friend had. I really liked that deck. As an adult, I realized it wasn't a good deck at all, but I have fond memories of learning how to play and getting cards from my friend, which at that point had sentimental value. There's a lot of good stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Again, it's easiest to recommend to people who actually know how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not very beginner-friendly at all. I definitely sympathize with people who are complaining about how on one turn someone will spend the whole turn summoning a million different cards and effects. But if you're determined enough to stick it out, you could definitely learn the game and even build a competitive deck with the free stuff you get over time, if you're patient. There's no premium currency, just gems, and you get some of those just by logging in. I can't really comment on higher level play or experience climbing the ladder or anything like that. My experience is purely as an outsider who installed it and played it casually for a while. Heavier, better, and more pointed criticism has been given by others. Hopefully this review has been useful, entertaining, or had some value to those of you who are interested. Thank you for watching. My name is Atratzu, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.